powerful regional titans, zero shared frontiers, and no historical record of colonial friction between them. Yet today, Iran and Israel are locked in a high-stakes open confrontation. For several decades, the global community observed as these two adversaries circled one another through a lens of proxy fighters, targeted hits, digital warfare, and covert struggles staged on foreign soil. Most analysts cautioned that a straight-up fight was inevitable. Hardly anyone anticipated the sheer velocity of its arrival. To grasp our current precarious position, one must travel back over a century to the fall of an ancient crown, the emergence of a new republic, and a social uprising that flipped the script on everything. This is the comprehensive narrative of the Iran-Israel feud and the reason the Middle East has been permanently altered. At the dawn of the 20th century, the broader Middle East existed under the thumb of the Ottoman Empire, a massive Islamic caliphate that reigned for 6 centuries. But by 1900, the Ottoman foundations were rotting. Graft, battlefield losses, and internal coups had crippled it beyond any hope of healing. European titans, specifically London and Paris, were hovering like predators, prepared to dissect its lands. Then came the Great War. The Ottomans backed the Kaiser. It proved to be a fatal strategic blunder. When the Central Powers collapsed in 1918, the Ottoman realm vanished. England and France marched in and carved up the region, sketching borders that never previously existed, slicing through cultural, spiritual, and tribal boundaries with virtually no concern for the inhabitants. London took over a zone titled Mandatory Palestine, a coastal strip on the eastern Mediterranean inhabited by a majority Arab Muslim group, a notable Arab Christian pocket, and a small but expanding Jewish contingent. It was in this soil that the seeds of modern chaos were sown. For generations, Jewish communities across the European continent endured systemic violence. Brutal riots in Russia and prejudice across the West fueled a rising tide. A surging movement known as Zionism surfaced in the late 1800s with a basic yet revolutionary concept. Jewish individuals required a sovereign territory where they could finally escape persecution. A home is the only shield against the winds of hate. That sanctuary, Zionists maintained, had to be Palestine, the ancestral biblical heartland of their people. The British authorities had issued conflicting pledges to everyone during the First World War. They guaranteed the Arab sovereignty if they rose against the Turks. Simultaneously, they promised Jewish figureheads backing for a colony via the 1917 Balfour Declaration. These oaths were fundamentally incompatible, and London was aware of the friction. Through the roaring 20s and 30s, Jewish arrivals in Palestine spiked, especially as the shadow of Adolf Hitler made European life impossible. Arab Palestinians observed with sharpening dread as the social fabric of their land transformed. Friction between the two groups boiled over into bloodshed. Britain fought to keep the peace, trapped between two factions with rival and non-negotiable claims to one patch of dirt. Then the unthinkable happened. The Holocaust. 6 million Jews were liquidated by the Nazis. The planet was stunned. Global momentum for a Jewish state hit a fever pitch. A weary Britain, shattered by the Second World War, tossed the crisis to the nascent United Nations and retreated. On May 14, 1948, the nation of Israel was proclaimed. Within moments, Washington recognized it. Moscow did the same. The Arab world erupted in rage. By the following morning, 5 combined militaries, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, stormed the infant state, intending to erase it instantly. What ensued was the 1948 Arab-Israeli conflict. Israel, defying every strategic forecast, endured, not just survived, but grew, concluding that fighting with more land than the UN partition had suggested. To Israelis, this was the war of liberation, a divine sign, the end of a 2-millennium exile. To Palestinians, it was the Nakba, the catastrophe. More than 700,000 Arabs vanished from their ancestral homes. Entire hamlets were leveled. A displacement crisis began that persists into our present day. Where was Iran during this chaos? In 1948, Tehran was a constitutional kingdom led by a Shah. Iran wasn't Arab, it was Persian. It lacked a direct emotional tie to the Palestinian struggle that defined its neighbors. Remarkably, Iran, under the monarchy, maintained relatively standard ties with Israel. The two capitals even traded intel and defense technology. So how did Iran pivot from a quiet associate to Israel's ultimate nightmare? The explanation lies in one of the most explosive political shifts of the modern age. During the middle decades of the century, Iran was commanded by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The ruler was a bit progressive. He championed Western-style growth, female liberty, land reform, and factory building. He was fiercely pro-American and a dedicated foe of communism. Yet his grip was fragile. In 1951, the Iranian assembly chose a new leader, Mohammad Mossadegh, a beloved nationalist with one goal: reclaim Iran's oil from the British, who had been draining the wealth for years. While the public saw pennies, London took billions. Mossadegh seized the industry. Britain was livid. The White House was panicked. By August 1953, the Shah, fearing a coup, escaped the country, first to Baghdad, then Italy. What followed would define the Middle East for the next century. The CIA and British spies triggered a secret plot labeled Operation Ajax. They hired mobs to ignite chaos in Tehran. They subverted military brass. They faked uprisings against Mossadegh. Within days, his administration folded. He was locked away for life. The Shah was escorted back and seated on his throne, now a total puppet of Washington. For the West, it was a win. Oil flowed. For Iranians, it was a scar. Their democracy was murdered by foreigners for profit. Oil is often bought with the currency of national dignity. The Shah ruled with an iron fist afterward. His secret agents, the Savak, tortured and erased critics. Freedom was stifled. But Iran was a strategic goldmine. The US looked away. Beneath the surface, the nation was screaming. In 1979, the volcano erupted. Massive strikes paralyzed Iran. The monarchy fell. The Shah fled in January and died shortly after. Into this vacuum stepped Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a stern cleric who had spent years abroad crafting a radical vision. Islamic law combined with total war against Western influence. Khomeini returned to find millions cheering. The Islamic Republic was born, a theocracy. Overnight, Iran's soul shifted. The secular pro-West elite were replaced by revolutionaries who branded America the Great Satan and Israel its Little Satan outpost. Israel's embassy was handed to the PLO. Iran didn't change because of geography. It changed because of theology. Then an event occurred that made the rift permanent. In late 1979, radicals stormed the US embassy in Tehran, seizing 52 hostages for 444 days. The bridge was burned. Iran's hatred for Israel became a core religious pillar. In 1980, seeing a weakened neighbor, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded. The war lasted 8 agonizing years. 1 million died. Iran fought with zeal, but was isolated. The West backed Iraq. This left 2 marks on Tehran's psyche. First, they realized they must build their own weapons and never trust outsiders. This birthed their nuclear ambition. Second, they perfected the proxy model, backing groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon to fight their wars from a distance. Iran found a way to bleed Israel without a single missile leaving Persian soil. Through the 90s and early 2000s, Iran built its nuclear infrastructure. Israel was terrified. A regime calling for your erasure while holding a nuke is an existential crisis. Israel struck back with shadows. Scientists were hunted. The Stuxnet virus fried Iranian hardware. Tehran doubled down on its ring of fire. Hamas in Gaza, Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Syria. The 2015 nuclear deal offered a brief pause, but when Donald Trump exited in 2018, the guardrails vanished. Iran accelerated its enrichment. The shadow war turned white-hot in 2024. Israel executed a stunning strike, exploding thousands of Hezbollah pagers and radios, crippling their command. Then they dropped 80 specialized bombs on a bunker 60 feet deep, killing the legendary Hassan Nasrallah. Iran's decades of investment were crumbling. In April 2024, Israel hit an Iranian consulate in Syria. Iran fired back with 300 drones, its first direct volley. By October, another massive Iranian barrage hit, citing the deaths of Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. The cycle of eye for an eye had become a blind rush toward total war. We cannot ignore October 7, 2023. Hamas, fueled by Tehran, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. The retaliation was absolute. By late 2024, 40,000 Palestinians were dead. The region was a powder keg. On February 28, 2026, the silence broke. The US and Israel ignited Operation Epic Fury. B-2 bombers pulverized missile sites. Israeli jets hammered every province. Tehran's historic sites were caught in the crossfire. Supreme Leader Khamenei was killed. The human toll was grim. A strike on a school took the lives of 165 children. Iran responded by closing the Strait of Hormuz, choking the world's oil supply. Attacks hit the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and beyond. Marco Rubio warned the worst is yet to come. Will the regime fall? Will the world economy collapse? No one knows the finale. But now you understand the prologue. Everything today is the result of a century of broken oaths, oil greed, and a revolution that refused to die. If this clarified the chaos for you, subscribe to The History Lab. We break down the world every week. See you in the next one.